What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I've got a brand new segment on my channel. I want to keep expanding this channel, and I'm bringing you guys a segment today for the first time, hopefully the first of many if you guys like it, called Bookmark Buddies. Now, you guys know I'm a very avid book reader, collector, clearance browser. I love collecting cheap books that have interesting titles. I love the famous horror authors. I've been doing a lot of book buying lately, and I read a ton of books, and I don't actually often talk much about them besides showing you guys on the hauls that I get. But I wanted to start doing some book reviews. A lot of YouTubers I know in the horror community review a lot of movies, and I don't see a lot of horror book reviewers. So I wanted to start briefly reviewing some books that I've been reading on this channel in this Bookmark Buddies segment, and hopefully you guys like it. Again, real quick, I'm just going to sort of peruse over it. But the first one I wanted to do is one that I just got in my last haul I showed you guys last week. I just got this last Friday, and this is Dead Man's Float. I picked this up at Half Price Books here in Pittsburgh for $1. I didn't know Robert Walker, the author, but the cover looked cool, and the title sounded cool, and the back of the book looked pretty cool. So I figured, hey, for $1, might as well check it out, see if I might like a new author. And sure enough, I did. This was a really good book. Some brief info on the book. Again, it's called Dead Man's Float by Robert Walker. It was written, I have notes here on the side. It was written in 1988, so this is a throwback. I was 2 years old when this book was released. I got it for $1. The cover of the book says that it was initially released for $4 back in 1988. So a really cool random find here at Half Price Books. And again, the book centers around Dr. Dean Grant. Again, there are spoilers on this review, so if you want to see this book and read it, and you have not yet, skip this review first. There are spoilers in this review. But essentially, quickly to go through the plot, Dr. Dean Grant is our main character. He is a forensic guy. He does all the sciences that surround murders. He takes care of all the fingerprints and the dusting and all the different sciences that go along with it. He has 2 people on his team that he works with as well. Also working with police to try and solve rampant murder crimes in the area, I believe, of Chicago. So, essentially, the backstory of this is he was working with a doctor by the name of Irwin Cook, who was a psychologist, who started to study and believe that there was a floater killer going around, so to speak. This killer was going from major city to major city, and there'd be a rampant upswing of drownings in the cities where this killer would sort of follow. And all of a sudden, in different cities that Cook would follow around, there were more and more drownings where a serial killer was specializing in drowning his victims and killing them via water. And so this pattern emerged, and no one believed Irwin Cook was a legit doctor. They thought he was crazy. They thought his suspicions were groundless. And eventually, he drove himself mad from working so many hours on these drowning cases, and he died before he could really ever get all his information published and actually get himself on the trail of this killer. Now, a year or so later, Cook has left all of his information to our main character, Dr. Dean Grant, and now Dean Grant is suddenly noticing in his city, I think it's Chicago, that all of these the drowning victims are increasing. You're seeing more and more people drowning, and they all have in common that they are terminally ill. They all come from hospitals, whether they're young or they're old. They are listed as being fatally ill and that they're going to die soon, and they wind up all drowning in different major bodies of water. And so that's sort of the killer's MO. Just quickly going through it, you find out that this killer winds up being a split personality. So definitely a taboo topic for 1988. But this killer essentially starts to go after Dean Grant's wife, Jackie, who works in a hospital. One by one, people start turning up dead in these major bodies of water. And you have to wonder, you think at first that it's this unflocked priest or whatever, Brother Timothy. And it winds up being that it is actually, Brother Timothy is actually dead, and the actual killer is housing Brother Timothy's personality, as well as the person who she is, Angelica. So it's this Angelica, Brother Timothy split personality. And the story comes out, I'm kind of jumping around, but the story comes out in the end with twists that the mother of Angelica was psychiatrically crazy. She was a psychiatric patient. She was nuts, and it was hereditarily passed down, this crazy gene, that Brother Timothy was killed at a young age, and so Angelica is making up for Brother Timothy's death by killing these people one by one. The whole family hereditarily started to believe that people needed to be cleansed of their sins by going up to God. They needed to go be drowned and be killed and led to water because they were going to die anyway. And they believed that all nurses and people in hospitals were the evil ones, were Satan's people that were keeping these fatally ill patients around for too long and dragging out their lives. And they would rather save these people's lives by taking these fatally ill hospital patients and cleansing them of their sins, taking them purely into the water, and making them see God painlessly and earlier. So they were like religious zealots who believed they were actually doing God's bidding when they were actually murdering people left and right. So, and of course, the big twist in this book is that there's a Father Avila. He is the one who's in search of Brother Timothy when he comes to realize that he winds up, the mother is a psychological patient, and that's where Father Avila used to work. He used to mentor the mother and try to make her clean again from all of her hysterias and things like that. And he wound up hooking up with her, getting her pregnant, and fathering this Timothy. And Dr. Avila, being a priest and being taboo, not being allowed to have sex with anybody, let alone to impregnate one of his patients, knew that he would be disbanded from the church and be put to death essentially back in these times. So he decided to drown the child, Timothy, which of course makes Angelica now come back after him and after all priests and people in hospitals. And so he sort of caused this chain effect where the mother went even crazier and sent on her family to do God's bidding in her mind. So good psychological thriller. This book's about 340 pages. I read this in about 3 sittings. I read it, started one Friday, finished another Friday, but I actually did this in much less than a week. I did it in about 3 days, about 3 sittings. Really fast read, really easy read. The language is very flowy. It's very simple. I like the psychological horror in this. I love the innovative thing, especially for 88, that killer is killing by drowning. Also the religious aspect of it, believing they're doing God's work, being demented and believing that they are actually the holy ones, and thinking that the nurses are the unholy ones. That's a cool twist as well. The one thing I'll say negatively on the book is that the first 60 pages are sort of just the same thing. It drags on early on a lot about just Dr. Grant just being at the crime scene studying the first dead body, and it kind of belavers and goes on with him looking up all these microbiological little fingerprints and hair follicles and things. So it kind of drags early on, and there's a couple scenes in the middle where he's looking for evidence against a certain victim to try to find who this person is, where the language kind of drags on, a little scientific, a little slow in parts. But for the most part, especially after the first 40 pages, it really picks up well. It's paced well after that. The Jackie character's cool. There's Charlie Block is one of the hospital patients that Jackie works with. He's the comic relief. He's a funny kind of spitfire character. I like him a lot. I like a lot of the drownings and stuff, that they do a good job quickly kind of hitting the action points, describing the drowning victims. They throw in the twist with the priest. The language was a little confusing because you're not sure. The mother and the daughter, Angelica, have the same first name, so you're not sure who they're talking about sometimes. So it can be a little confusing. But all in all, the twist was really cool. Father Avila's character had a nice deep background. He had some good monologues. And in the end, what's cool is they supposedly kill Angelica, and she does die. But that split personality spirit of Brother Timothy goes to one of the sisters in a different town. You find out that the mother, Angelica, has a ton of aunts, sisters and brothers, and a couple of other kids as well. So her madness that she passed down to Angelica for Brother Timothy also passed down to 5 or 6 other people that have families. So this crazy cult of drowning murderers is in a bunch of different cities and passed down. So a really nice little open-ended thing where killers are still out there as well. I looked this up for a sequel. There is not one, but there are 3 or 4 other different Robert Walker books that he has series of killers that kill based on fires and different things. So it gets kind of repetitive after a while, but this one is really good. I love the drowning motif. I love the twist in there. They're nice. Like I said, a few points off for starting off a little slow, and sometimes it gets a little sciencey in parts. It's a little over my head. And again, the Angelica name thing can be a little confusing, so a few points off for those things. But cool murder scenes, really good character for the main antagonist. Dean Grant is a really good protagonist. They touch on the marriage stuff. His wife is really cool. The cops that work with him are really cool. Good back and forth repartee. And again, nice open-ended kind of negative ending, so to speak, which leaves the series open as well. So I would give this overall, I would say this is a 7 out of 10. Again, could have been great with just a few more little explanations, and could have jumped into a couple extra, could have spent a few more pages detailing the murders and the killer's mindset instead of the forensic stuff. But that's really small nitpick stuff here and there. All in all, this is like in the 7.5 range. I like this book a lot. I picked it up for $1. You probably can find it for $1 or $2 at one of your local bookstores. I'm sure it's on like half.com or eBay for $1 or $2. Well worth the read. I really enjoyed this. I breezed through it. And I think the characters are good, and I think this is ahead of its time, and I think it's a really, really nice twist on the religious thing, and it's very fast-paced for the most part. So go check this one out, Dead Man's Float by Robert Walker. And again, if you have read this book, tell me in the comments below what you think. What other books would you like to see me pick up and review? I want to continue this Bookmark Buddies sort of column channel feature. So what do you want to see me review in the comments, and how do you think I did with this one? Tell me again what you guys want to see done, and I will see you next time on Bookmark Buddies. This is Jason Burke. Have a good day, readers.